years. We would like to welcome back to our stage our speakers from the first part of our symposium, Luiz Lima, Robert Blakely, Julio Carvalho, and Edward Christie. Let's also give a warm welcome to our moderator for this Q&A session, Leonardo Vieira, one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Leonardo is an educator, speaker, and counselor in mediumistic meetings, and also has collaborated in disseminating Spiritism in many different activities. Please, let's welcome Leonardo Vieira.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here with these fine minds, fine hearts, sharing this moment of the Q&A session. And throughout this morning, we collected many questions to be addressed to the speakers today. And I have to say, it's as wonderful as the talk that they gave, the information that they gave it to us. So please keep coming for the second session that we'll have. A quick note that we also had questions from our friends on the web as well, and we thank you for that. What we'd like to do is to address at least each of the speakers today with one question. We'll see how it goes from there. So we ask all the speakers also to keep it concise. I know the questions are elevated questions, but we'll try our best. The first question to Luiz Lima, please. What is the importance of Kardec's work in modern days?
Well, I think we had the opportunity to show the amount of work he did and how many pages he produced, and all of that takes us on a journey, or invites us on a journey towards moral transformation. If we don't do moral transformation, we're going to keep hearing the same news in a different city every day, in a different color scheme every day, but it's always going to be the same. It's not going to change. Wars are going to erupt every single day if we don't go through moral transformation. Right after the publication of his work, or right after his death, it was much more difficult for all of us to comprehend what was written because of the level of knowledge, and it takes time to sink in. It's sinking in for all of us here in this room. I hopefully, it's been at least halfway done. We're learning it. So that's the importance. It's not a thing that it's going to take overnight. It's not going to take us, we're not going to wake up tomorrow morning perfect. It will take time. We have to be brave enough to face it. We have to be brave enough to go after it, to go after this moral transformation. What the work he left is the guideline. Here's what you do, and not only that, here's what happens if you don't. So I think what we have to look at is not just look at from the other side. What if we didn't have it? What if we didn't have any of his pages, any of his work? Wouldn't it be different? What if we didn't have a Jesus? It would be completely different. So I think his work, the importance of his work depends on each one of us. It's not the pages, the amount of pages he wrote that's going to produce moral transformation inside each one of us. It's our hearts willing to go ahead and do that on behalf of ourselves, actually.
Thank you. The next question, Julio Carvalho. Since you brought the example of a movie at the beginning of your talk, can you please tell us, are producers or directors of movie pictures influenced by the spirits? Is the influence always positive, or can it be negative?
There are movies and there are movies. I will mention a few of them. If you have watched The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, if you have watched the movie Ghost, if you have watched the movie The Notebook, after you watch these movies, your sense of lightness, your understanding of what life is all about It's always people and people and people. People with love making life very purposeful for all of us. When you watch those movies, you are being here educated in a sense of what life is all about. We understand that Christ uses all the workers possible in order to influence the message of love. Motor was definitely someone used by God to help us become a better version of ourselves. Because if Christ only depended on religious people to do his work, boy, he'll be completely lost. Because unfortunately, religious people, with few exceptions, are making such a bad name of religion that this is the reason why we have such a strong movement of atheism. Scientists, they show us to the power of God through its creation. Scientists are not responsible for creating atheism. It's bad religious people who don't live up to the message, teaching love and yet hating, and that calls hypocrisy. So Jesus uses all his workers available, including directors, to pass on the message of more transformation of love. But also, we have directors who actually go to a specific part of our planet, a spiritual plane called the umbral. And the umbral is composed of all of our negative thoughts. At that place, we have many spirits who are imperfect, and they're trying to bring to earth what they see in the umbral. So when a director wants to do a movie, and this is a movie of horror, this is a movie that brings a mess of hatred, of violence, he goes to these specific places to get his inspiration. So when we choose to watch this movie, we are choosing to attune our minds to that kind of spirits. So who chooses our channels inside our house? Who? Is it our neighbors? Our parents? We make the choice of how we are going to tune ourselves with. Therefore, to love ourselves is to choose very wisely what we watch, because in the process of watching, you're getting yourself in tune with these directors. If the movies are negative in content, your subconscious mind will absorb this message daily but constantly. And if you watch a violent movie, it doesn't mean at the end of the movie you're going to punch someone next to you. Maybe your mother-in-law, you know. Please don't misunderstand me. I love my mother-in-law. Whenever she comes back from Japan, we have a great talk. Therefore, it doesn't mean we're going to punch the person next to us. What's going to happen, as we feed our subconscious mind with this negative garbage, the day that calls for a moment of our reaction, if there's an instance in which we need to react, we're going to react based with the information we have fed our minds with. So if it's negative and violent, someone cuts you off on the street and then you're reacting violently. People say in different words, I blacked out. It's not that they're closed their eyes and everything became black. They're simply reacting to their emotions. So indeed, these directors, they search for inspiration in different parts of the spiritual plane.
Thank you, Julio. Next question for Robert Blakely. In your opinion, what is the purpose of artistic mediumship?
Well, first and foremost, it shows us that there is a continuity, that there is life beyond this life. And Spiritism teaches us that the spirit world is first and foremost, that this world is an illusion. So the important life that we live is in the spirit world. So we have that link with the mediumistic art, showing us that that does continue on. Also, it has the potential to show us higher spiritual worlds and give us an idea of the beauty that awaits us as we progress, as we evolve in our own spiritual lives. I think of No Solar, for instance. The descriptions in No Solar talk about the beauty of the landscape, how everything is such symmetry, how the trees are so beautifully shaped, and the flowers have these vivid colors that vibrate, they're so vivid. And so these types of things can come to us through mediumistic art and give us an inkling of the things to come and the joy that awaits us.
Thank you. Next question to Edward Christie. How can we, as Spiritists, integrate music or art into our daily lives to better connect with our own spirituality and or God?
This question is interesting because we often think of artists and musicians and poets and writers as a breed apart, as if they're not fully human or they're something other than human. But I didn't come from a musical family myself, and it was always clear to me I was going to do something in music, even though I used to talk to my parents about it and they just give me a blank stare. But it worked out for me in the end. But what I think about is that we have to see that, of course, the arts, the fine arts, are supposed to be just for themselves. There's no functional purpose for a painting or a piece of music. It's there for inspiration. But I think the challenge to all of us, the way I see it, is to figure out what we bring to this world and how we can be ourselves in this world, so that we don't have to be an artist to bring beauty into the world. We have a daily, everyday kind of beauty that provides us, every one of us, an opportunity to bring beauty into the world. Have you ever seen my wife handle flowers? I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see that. Maybe all you could do is make your bed beautifully, or clean the kitchen, or arrange something nicely. I mean, these things bring beauty, and they come so naturally to each one of us. If we really reflected on that without trying to want to be, why aren't I a musician and why aren't I a painter? You know, because it really doesn't matter in a way. It's, you know, someone asked me, why do you do that? Or I always wanted to play the piano, or some statement like that. I said, well, bring your beauty into the world. Don't worry about bringing someone else's. And we all have it because we all have beauty within us. And I think to that end, we really do enhance every one of us in our own way, even though it's sometimes difficult to appreciate it because it comes so naturally, so easily, it can't possibly be of any value, right? But the fact that it comes easily to you has that value. You've been given that as a gift to bring that beauty into the world. And bring it. We all want to see it.
Thank you, Edward. And I think on behalf of the next question, you are a medium because you already answered. So thank you. Next question, back to Luiz Lima. It's a little bit long, but if you need me to ask it again, I'll do it so, and I'll do it slowly. In your research of Kardec and the codification, was there a moment or moments in which you could intuitively, feel the magnitude of all his work, but also how he overcame the many obstacles that he encountered at that time? How does that resonate with modern day Spiritists?
Yeah, on the first part, there were a few moments where you keep reading, especially on the Spiritist Review, where he portrays his side of things. He will debate with people who attack him in such a polite way, in such a Spiritist way that it's unbelievable. And at times you just go like this, wow, I'm glad I don't have to do a face-to-face debate with this guy, because it would be a disaster. I wouldn't have the ability to even do anything, because he's so brilliant. The way he places his opinion and the way he receives someone else's opinion, it is just unbelievable. It's different from most of us. We would just feel attacked and we would try to attack back. So when you go through these passages where people write things, bad things about himself or Spiritism or the books or whatever, the way he turned that into a good thing, he turns it around, and you just like go like, did I read this right? Let me reread this passage because I think I missed something. And it's there, it's written there. So in those moments, especially in the Spiritist review, yes, you just feel like the magnitude of the person first, the spirit first, the evolved spirit first, and then obviously his work. And the second part is how that applies on a modern day, right?
How does that resonate with modern day?
Exactly like that. He is teaching us what Jesus said, the other face. You come with hate, I'm going to reply with love. That's the other face of hate. You come with intolerance, I'm going to reply with tolerance. You attack me, Allan Kardec, I'm going to respond in a spiritist, polite way. You come to attack my work, my family, whoever it is, I'm going to reply in a totally different way, and I'm going to teach you something by replying that way. That's what I think it applies to us. The mechanism of doing it, the dynamics that he uses to debate, to discuss things and ideas, if we use that same mechanism ourselves, we're going to get into this the other face thing, and that's going to change our lives.
Thank you. Next question to Robert Blakely. Could you explain more what Kardec meant when he described Christian art as being filled with admiration and fear?
Well, as I said in my talk, he did not want to denigrate Christian art in any way. He saw the Spiritist art as a fulfillment, as an enhancement of the Christian art. But what he was saying in that particular statement was that Christian art was born of suffering. While it does reveal the beauty of the soul, it gives us a sense of greater things, it also was born in suffering, the martyrdom of the early Christians, all the suffering and oppression that they had to go through was expressed in their art. And as we move on to Spiritist art now, this is the victory after the battle, as I said. And this is where now we have more of a full expression of what it means to be a spirit, to evolve, to go into a higher world where we have so much more potential waiting for us. So that's why it's more joyous.
Thank you. Next question, Julio Carvalho. Knowing that we are still in our spiritual evolution, lacking a better understanding of poetry, how can Spiritism help us developing a sense of poetry?
Because Spiritism teaches the evolution of the soul. Science teaches the evolution of the body. But from the scientific point of view, there is no purpose in evolution. From the Spiritist perspective, there is a point in evolution, and that is to perfect the machine and the mind. And since everything is under the law of evolution, so it goes for our art. The Spirit Charles, through the hands of the medium Ivone do Amaral Pereira, a Brazilian medium, he affirms that the Spirit Ovidio, who was a Roman poet and a speaker who lived 30 years before Christ, then the painter Raphael Stanzio, Italian, and the great composer with his unforgettable melody, Frédéric Chopin, these are all the same individual who progressed over time. So music, it's actually the culmination of art. They start with poetry, paint, and then music. We have to remember that word, it's a very powerful thing. According to the rhetoric experts, the greatest speaker, one of the greatest of all times, it's considered to be Hitler. And why? Because by using words, he was able to move thousands of people to kill millions. But at the same time, Jesus, with words, also changed the world. So the purpose of poetry, and Spiritist poetry, is to change the way we feel ourselves. We feel about ourselves. So Spiritism teaches that by understanding the language of the highly evolved spirits, we are in connection with them. They help us to express our emotions so we can have a better understanding of them. Let me give you another one. This lady, she wrote a poem called You Didn't. I remember the day you told me that it was going to rain, we shouldn't go to the beach, and then we went there and it rained anyway. I thought you were going to tell me, I told you so, but then you didn't. Mm-hmm. I remember the day you came and showed me your new car. I drove it and I dented your car. That day I knew you were going to drop me, but then you didn't. I remember you inviting me to a formal dinner, and I forgot to tell you, and you showed up in jeans. That day I knew you were going to drop me, but then you didn't. I remember I took you to a party, and I purposely made you jealous, and I thought that day you'd leave me, but then you didn't. So you put up with me, you loved me, and I wanted to get married with you and make up to all the bad things I have done to you after you came back from Vietnam, but then you didn't. He didn't get back from Vietnam, you know. Therefore, this poem teaches us how vulnerable we are, that at any time something like this can happen. Therefore, we should value today, not wait for the future to be happy, not be a drag, not be a prisoner of our past, but live the moment with joy and happiness. That's what Spiritist poetry is all about.
Thank you again. Edward Christie, how can we open ourselves to beauty and benefit from the pleasures that it brings?
Can I say I answered that question already? I truly believe beauty comes from recognizing that we're all different and understanding that each of us is here to bring a beauty into the world that we're asked to bring. If you really pay attention, people are asking you for things all the time. And what they're asking you for is what I believe you're here for. You're here to bring that beauty into the world in some way, to heal the ugliness that we see all around us, because we can't live in ugliness. And each of us, I think, by accepting who we are and not wanting to be someone else and not looking at somebody else and saying, I wish I could be that thing, is really where you start to grow and bring that beauty out, because you have it there in you.
We thank you so much for all your beautiful answers, the work that you are doing. And with that, we conclude the first Q&A session, and we invite everyone to please ask your questions as you are watching the next speakers. If you have a question, don't be shy to ask. You may be asking for somebody else as well. So please, thank you again. We'll see you next.